You are watching Stellar.
Hi, everybody. It's Jim McCarthy, CEO of Stellar, and I am really excited today. We have a great conversation. I want to just make a couple of quick points before we jump into it, which is that this is for those of you who've been watching us for the last year, we have kind of taken two paths with the chats that we're having with these little events that we're doing online. One is the Spotlight on Success, which is what we're doing today, in which we're talking about people and their success stories with online events in a way that I think you're not only going to enjoy hearing the stories, but also find a lot of stuff worth emulating and learning from and all of that. And then for those of you who've been tracking along with the return to in-person events information, including the return readiness score, that is now a separate series called Expert Chats. And in particular, we're focusing on getting back into the venue over the next few months. We're not going to cover the return readiness today because that's going to be part of the other series, and more information is coming about that very soon. So here we are today, Spotlight on Success. I have two guests that I think you're going to really, really enjoy meeting, and if you don't know them already, and hearing really the evolution of what's happened to them in the online events world over the last year. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce Robert Bannon and Lee Lesak, and I will tell you a little bit about each one of them. Robert is a singer and an actor. Hi, guys. How's it going?
Good.
All right,
good.
So now I just get to say amazing things about the two of you for a minute or two.
Boy.
So you properly queued up for people. Robert is a singer and an actor who's been in shows
Allegedly.
Like every show you can think of: Music Man, Rent, Bye Bye Birdie, Guys and Dolls. He's recording his debut CD called From a Distance, the music of the Great American Songbook, which really does explain it quite a bit. It's recorded remotely and it's music from the Great American Songbook. So I love it when the title is a really good, clear explanation of what something is. He's performed with Patti LaBelle, Roseanne Cash, Whoopi Goldberg, George Benson, Rosie O'Donnell. You wrote this, man. I don't.
Can you send this to my mother? She'll be so impressed.
Yeah. You could just put her.
Please.
We'll do a Zoom. It'll just be you and your mom. We'll just
done.
And a lot of other things, including, actually, I didn't know this, so you got to tell us a little bit about what you did in this. You were in 13 episodes of Saturday Night Live from season 43 to 45. That's pretty cool. Please welcome Robert Bannon, everybody.
Well, that was the best introduction ever. Thank you, Jim. I'm going to now read your bio, Jim. I want to know all about being the CEO of Stellar.
Let me write it. Send you some notes.
I did. Okay. And not that I'm keeping track, but it's now up, since that's been written, it's now up to 20 episodes of Saturday Night Live.
Okay, sorry. Scratch that. 20. Everybody.
I mean, if you're going to say it, we might as well.
20 episodes. Let me know when it gets to 100, Robert, because then we'll be talking. All right.
Deal.
Our other guest is a booming baritone. I like that. Maybe we can get him to do some booming baritone for us at some point today.
I hope so.
Who has appeared on the international concert scene, touring extensively in the U.S. and Europe to sold-out performances, 8 recordings so far, which is amazing. Currently re-releasing his duets album called In Good Company, which includes interviews with his duet partners, including Amanda McBroom, Ann Hampton Callaway, Stephen Schwartz. And the thing we're here to talk about, I think, I love the invention that's happened in the last year, and no small aspect of that was the Quarantine Cabaret and Cocktails show. And that he and Robert evolved into a series of online shows on Stellar called the Broadway Cast Reunion Series, which is so exciting. I got to tell you, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Lee Lesak, so great to have you on the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Yeah. So we're here to talk. I think part of it is like, let's just tell a story. And then I think we can build on that story in a way that's going to maybe help people who are watching and thinking about how the evolution of their own thinking about online events can go. Why don't we just start there? If you're watching us on Stellar and you have a question, you don't have to wait till the end. You can just ask it in the chat and we'll try to get to it. I probably will miss it, but somebody will flag me and we'll get to it. So by all means, this is one to learn from. So listen, learn, and ask, and we'll do our very best. So having said all that, Robert, Lee, how'd this happen? What in the world? Like, walk us through it.
Well, so I was on a tour. I was at the very beginning of what was to be a 5-week concert tour. I produce a tour called Live in Central Park Revisited, Simon and Garfunkel. And it's a recreation of the identical set list that Simon and Garfunkel performed in Central Park on September 19th, 1981. And I tour with an incredible singer, songwriter, pianist by the name of Johnny Rogers. And we did one concert and then everything collapsed. So I came home, not really sure, what was going to be. I thought I'd be home for like a month, In addition to my work as a touring artist, I own LML Music Presents, which is a boutique booking and production company, and mostly represent Broadway artists like Chita Rivera and Lea Salonga and Shoshana Bean and Chris Mann. And so not only did my tour collapse, but everybody's. And
I seem to have a vague recollection of that. Yes.
Yeah, it's been a year and 2 days,
Yeah.
Meanwhile, probably a year and a half ago, I got a call. The guitarist that I tour with, one of his former students, who's a sax player, is working on Robert's album. And I guess he was talking to Joe about, needing a record label. And Joe said, you should call my buddy Lee. He owns LML Music, which is a record label pretty much devoted to jazz, cabaret, singer-songwriter, Broadway vocals. And so this guy called me and asked if I would take a meeting. And we did a conference call. And, I Googled Robert and YouTubed him, and I thought, this is a good match. So that was that. He went off to record his album. I went off on my tour, and when I came home, he texted me a few days after I was home because he had some licensing questions. Now, when in the 48 hours that I was home, at the very beginning of lockdown, everybody, it appeared, was starving for facial connection. So, I never heard of Zoom before. I don't think I had ever initiated a FaceTime call on my phone, ever, because who is camera ready with no notice? Nobody in my phone book. And so, but in those 48 hours, I heard from cousins I never knew I had. Everybody wanted contact. And so Robert texted me, he said, I've got some licensing questions. And I said, why don't we have a cocktail over FaceTime? Right. And he's like, great. And so I remember it was like 4:30 or 5 o'clock. And I went out by the pool on the back patio with the dogs, and we're chatting. And we just laughed a lot. I think we both were, feeling the stress of all of this, and we just had a great time. So the next day, I texted Robert and I was like, are we having drinks again tonight? And he was like, of course. And this went on for a week or 10 days, just having a jolly time. And I said to him one night, I said, maybe it's just me, but I kind of think we're entertaining.
And
right?
Especially when you've had a drink or two, even more.
Whoa. Right.
Well, I said, why don't we produce a live stream talk show? Mm-hmm. Because back in March of 2020, there was a lot of musical content being thrown out on the internet. But those of us in music administration, our conversation was, what is legal? What do you need a license for? What do you need a sync license for? What do you need to pay a royalty for? And I didn't want to get in the middle of any headaches. So I said, let's just do a talk show. We came up with the title, and April 2nd, 2020, we premiered Quarantine, Cabaret, and Cocktails. And we just started reaching out to our friends in the music industry, in the Broadway industry, in the TV industry, just, anybody. And we started building these shows, and I don't know why, but they just took off. I mean,
Was it on Zoom at that time, Lee?
we used StreamYard, and we live streamed to Facebook and to YouTube.
Right.
We didn't even have our own Facebook and YouTube page. We just streamed to our personal pages.
Right.
I mean, we started this for fun. We never, ever imagined that 48 weeks later, we'd still be programming. We certainly never imagined that we'd have episodes that had close to 13,000 live viewers. And it's just been incredible. It's given us, well, I can speak for me, it's given me a focus every week, a creative, artistic focus that, you know, sort of gets me by. Robert and I say all the time, Thursday's our favorite day because we have something to do. So that's how this started. And on one of the very early episodes, a friend of mine who's the casting director at North Shore Music Theater outside of Boston, he loved watching our show. And he said, do you need suggestions for guests? And I said, yes. And he's the one that brought us Diana DeGarmo and Ace Young. They did a show there. And he said, you should have this great kid, Jake Ryan Flynn, on. He did a production of Auntie Mame with us. And he was Charlie in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory on Broadway. And he was in previews for the musical Mrs. Doubtfire when Broadway shut down. So he connected me with Jake's mom, Mary, and we're texting. She thought it was a great idea. And she said, you know, Jake thought maybe it would be fun to have some other cast members join the show if you're interested. And we were like, sure. The more the merrier.
Yeah.
And the next thing we know, we had the entire principal cast of Mrs. Doubtfire coming on the show. And that was our first unintended Broadway cast reunion. And we noticed that our viewership spiked. And we also noticed that there was it was a very joyous episode because they haven't seen each other. Now, at that time, it had just been a few months.
Yeah.
But to talk about, you know, the Broadway shutdown and to hear that process through the eyes of like a 7-year-old little girl and Jake, who was 11 at the time, and Rob McClure, the star of the show, who he and his wife just had a baby. And because of the shutdown, he wasn't missing one moment of time. So it was just a very heartwarming episode. And so then we started planning them, you know, every month, every 2 months.
Yeah.
And that's how it happened.
And now, Robert, how about speaking of hearing different parts of the story? We heard how you guys came together on this. So I just want to know, like, looking back, do you really think the conversations between the two of you were that entertaining, or was it the drinks or both? It could be both.
You better say yes.
Of course they were entertaining. They were incredibly no, I think that I think gratefully finding Lee and being connected to Lee about music turned into something so much more that we never ever intended it to be. Me and Lee did not meet for 6 months of us doing the show. We have still only we have still only met for one day in person when I had a trip to Los Angeles. So everything we do has been virtual. So I think it was good timing. A lot of really nice people who trusted us to come on the show, and a lot of people who miss entertainment, miss television and Broadway, and want something familiar. So we became a weekly point in your week that we're here, and we kind of went through this wave together.
It's really incredible. I mean, you know, I think about the relationships and partnerships and so forth that have been built over this year. With people that you've perhaps never seen in person. Yeah. It's really something. Like, just I often think about how lucky we are in a sense that the timing of this pandemic is now and not 15 years ago, because we would have been without
Right.
so many of the tools that have enabled us to do,
True.
some of these things. But sure, I mean, better timing would have been never, of course. But I think, given that it had to happen, the timing is not bad in that way. Talk about the evolution of the concept. So obviously, it was originally just a chat that you thought, like, there's a kernel of a sort of rapport here that we can build on. But so it's you talked about this. It started with maybe one guest, and then it evolved to entire casts. How about the content itself? Like, was there a structure originally that you evolved, or was it totally open-ended? Like, what happened?
Oh no, we have no structure.
Yeah,
and that is actually our trademark. Our quarantine show has just been, we just have fun, and we've tried to also address everything that's going on in the world at the same time. Mm-hmm. So, when the Black Lives Matter protests were happening, we felt like we can't go on and have a show and ignore,
right.
And so we reached out to friends that, are extremely vocal and involved and have started, nonprofits to raise awareness. And we brought them on. I mean, they're friends from the Broadway world, but they're making a difference. And we brought them on to educate us and our viewers on, what's appropriate and how do we move forward. And so we've had that. And then there have been like artists managers that somehow found our show and started reaching out to us to ask us if we'd have their clients on. I mean, we've had some amazing people like Gloria Gaynor and Denise Williams and Olita Adams and all these, Melissa Manchester, and all these like icons in the music industry, most of which found us, which is crazy.
That's great.
Crazy. So our weekly show it's been everything from, a Broadway cast reunion to we did a pandemic home renovation show with the host of Trading Spaces and My Celebrity Home, and
nice.
It's just we have a good time.
Yes, we've done Halloween with the Chippendales dancers. I mean, we put whatever whoever comes on our show. I think our structure is that we want it to feel comfortable, like we're having a conversation in your living room. It's not stuffy. It kind of goes with the flow of things, and I think the rapport with the guests and just having a conversation like we're having now is what makes it accessible to all people.
I seem to not have a cocktail though. I guess it's a bit early, but that seems to be the missing
I'm only drinking my new favorite Perrier Peach.
Perrier Peach.
In case Perrier wants to send cases.
Yeah. Or Topo Chico, which is what I'm drinking.
Oh, that's good too.
I love that. So here's an interesting progression is that for my booking agency, we attend regional booking conferences. We used to. No more. Yep. So everything is virtual. So in September, the first week of September, I think, was the Arts Midwest virtual booking conference. And I had a Zoom call with the programming manager of the Marcus Center in Milwaukee, John. And John has been a friend for years. I book a lot of concerts at his venue. And the Marcus Center is like the Broadway tour venue for Milwaukee. And in our conversation, he said, I'm a big fan of your weekly quarantine show. And I wonder what you and Robert are doing to monetize that.
Right.
Especially, I was like,
September?
You mean we could make money?
Yeah. So this is September, you said? So this is 5 months into doing it.
Yeah.
And you're already having a lot of success in terms of audience.
Yeah.
Right?
And we never, like a friend of mine said, you should, create like a virtual tip jar. So we created this banner that, gives a Venmo and PayPal and 95% of the time, because I'm engineering and trying to pretend that I'm not looking away.
Right.
And I forget to put the ticker tape on. So I think we've made like $14 in a year.
Literally.
Could buy you a couple of Perrier peaches.
That's it.
And so
12-pack.
John said, I think you have really great content, especially when you do your Broadway cast reunions.
Right.
And as a major Broadway tour venue that will likely remain dark for another year, this content is really valuable, because while my subscribers and patrons are waiting for our doors to open so they can come and see Frozen, we could offer them a backstage visit with the original Broadway stars.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so he planted that seed, and Robert and I thought, okay, well, what does this look like? You know, and we came up with some goals. The main goal was that we wanted to be able to employ out-of-work Broadway artists. Mm-hmm. So if we were going to create a new series, we wanted to pay everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's a good goal. You know, I mean, I think, no, I'm not joking, really. I mean, I think the last year has taught us just the value of that, right? Of being able to put people's talents to use in a way that enables them and all of us to have a livelihood. You know, I mean, like, how many people would have accepted break even over the last year?
Sure.
No,
you know,
right. I mean? We wanted to pay them, and we wanted to be bold about it, because you know, they're coming to sit and chat with us from their living room for an hour.
Yeah.
They've been sitting on that same sofa for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to make that happen. And it's just so interesting, you know, I know in business over the years, when you're on the right path, everything shows up exactly as it's meant to. And all the little angels that are going to lead you down the path show up. Mm-hmm. And so what happened is there are 3 ladies in the musical Hadestown called the Fates. Mm-hmm. And they sort of lead the story and take the audience on the journey. And they released a gorgeous holiday album called If the Fates Allow. Stunning. And I heard it like in November, and I said to Robert, we have to get them on the show, promote their album. So I reached out, I think on Instagram, to one of them, and I was like, would you like to come on our little show and promote your album? And she said, that sounds like a good idea. I'm going to put you in touch with our publicist. So she put me in touch with her publicist, who also happens to be the publicist for the Broadway production of Hadestown. So he confirmed them to come on our show in early December. And he was very nice. And I called him and I said, listen, Robert and I are working on a new concept, and here's how it came about. And obviously Hadestown is one of the shows we would want to include because it's a big tour. It won Best Musical Tony Award. And he thought it was a great idea. And he said, I want to put you in touch with the tour marketing company, because you're going to be reuniting the Broadway casts, but you're doing it in support of the tour venues that are dark, so that they have something to engage their patrons with.
Yeah, yeah.
So he brought in incredible guy, Andrew Damer from Allied Global Marketing, and he loved the idea, and he advised that we go to the producers, because he said if the producers give you their blessing, it'll be easy to engage the cast.
Right.
And so that's how it happened. And then he brought us to Disney because we needed their blessing for our Frozen reunion. And he then brought us to the Broadway publicist for Dear Evan Hansen.
Wow.
And one thing led to, and then there was a buzz going on, I think, in the tour marketing world, because then some other companies approached us about creating cast reunions for the shows that they represent. And it just, built and built and built like that.
And so you decided to start selling tickets.
So our original idea was to sell this to venues for a nominal fee, because we realized venues have been dark as well.
Right.
We wanted to make it like a no-brainer. The fee would be low enough that a venue wouldn't even have to get approval from a higher up. They could just say yes. And then that they would offer it as a gift of engagement to their subscribers or their sponsors or however they wanted. But we realized early on, when we started taking this out to the venues, that there were several venues that wanted to offer it as a gift to their season ticket holders, but they wanted to offer it as a ticketed event to the rest of their mailing list. A venue could have 30,000 season subscribers and 100,000 people on their email list.
Right.
And so that's when Andrew introduced me to Stellar.
We love him for that, obviously.
Yeah. So he put me in touch with Justin O'Neill and with Jason Kovac. And so that's when we partnered with you as our platform. And then we realized we've got, up to 12, 13,000 live viewers sometime for our weekly show from all over the world, because Robert and I hop on Instagram Live 30 minutes before our weekly quarantine show, just to remind people to come and join us. And so people chat on Instagram Live, and we realize that we've got these loyal followers that are there every week, and from Belgium, from Ghana, from the UK, from Paris, from Sydney. And so we thought they need a platform to watch our new show. So Stellar was sort of the answer. And you've got an incredible feature that you offer people that are producing content, where I can create a trackable ticket link to share with a venue so that I can identify every ticket that was sold and generated by them. And so now we've offered another way to see this show, which is via a trackable ticket link. And then we're actually paying the venue a percentage of every ticket they generate.
Which goes back to your original intent, which was to help the venue. And this is a tactic we've seen where, a couple of ways to do that. One would be to, give them something they can use themselves. Another is to give them a relatively easy way to make, pretty good money, which is what the affiliate tracking tool that you mentioned is all about. And we've seen people use that and really effective. And I think it goes beyond just, venues or touring houses that aren't working right now to just about anybody you can think of. So it's effective.
Well, we first saw it. I remember first hearing about this when Shoshana Bean did her Sing Your Hallelujah concert, and her people reached out to us for her to be on the show, and she gave us a trackable link, and we watched it here on Stellar. And it was a whole nother light bulb moment for me and Lee to be able to engage more people, more performing arts centers. And that's a feature that I think is really unique to your platform.
It's so important. I mean, it's really interesting because, I've gone through all the cycles with the producers of online content, and I try to stay a few months ahead of most people so I can give good advice. And one of the things that I found myself saying, especially back in the fall, was don't forget about the people that you normally work with in terms of supporting your show. It was so strange how quarantine kind of atomized everybody and sent everybody off into their corners. And when the instincts that you would normally tap into to say, well, the people who sell my show, for example, the touring houses or whoever, right? It's just like, to some degree, people forgot that existed. And then I was sort of in there when we were talking about marketing the online shows in the fall and winter. Don't forget about those people. They're still there. And there's still a network of support to you. And as long as it's a reciprocal benefit, right, people are going to do it. which is partly why we built that feature. But it was weird, people kind of forgot that they have valuable partnerships and relationships that they can still turn to, just in a new way. So of course,
it's a whole other world. I mean,
yeah.
I remember those first few weeks when we were up on our shows were up on your site, and every morning Robert and I would check the ticket count, and there was and we averaged like 100 tickets a day, and
that's not terrible.
It's not terrible.
Yeah, not terrible.
We sold thousands of tickets.
Yeah.
And it's incredible because when I look and see what our partner links have generated,
yeah,
it's really incredible because they're reaching people that we probably would not be able to reach. And Gold Star has been so incredible. I mean, I think that what we're doing is somewhat unique. There's a lot of content out there, but this is somewhat unique, not only in terms of the casts that we're bringing together, but the venues that their patrons are really connecting to this idea and excited to meet these people. I mean, 2 weeks ago we did The Lion King. Disney asked if we would be open to that, and Robert and I had a meeting about it, and I said, The Lion King's been out for 86 years or something. Forever. And so
96.
Nobody remembers anybody that has been in that show except Heather Headley, who was the original Nala. And I said, so if we can get Heather Headley, then I would do it. But that's never going to happen. And I emailed her manager, and she emailed back. She said, if you can do March 10th, she's in.
Yeah. I mean.
And it was so great. This cast has not seen each other for like 23 years. Amazing. So it was really special.
It occurs to me that post-pandemic, that's still going to be true, right? Two things are still going to be true. One, casts won't have seen each other for a long time. And two, it's not as though before all this, there was an easy way to have a hangout with the cast of a Broadway show, past or present, right? So
right.
It's funny how sometimes it takes a change like this, a disruption like this, to make people like you go like, why don't we do this? It's like, well, why don't we do this? So right. I feel like there's a door that's been opened here in terms of this kind of content, and I don't see it stopping in terms of people's interest. I think it keep going.
We talked to a theater. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say that like when Robert or I go to see a Broadway show, chances are we're going because we have a friend in the cast. That's just the world that we navigate in. And so we go backstage after. That's more common than not. But most people that go to see a show, whether it's on Broadway or on tour, they go to see the show and they go home.
Yeah.
They don't have that backstage visit. And so our Broadway cast reunions give them an opportunity to sit this close with these stars, many of which they've seen on Broadway already, and they're just enamored with them, and they can chat and ask questions, and it's really it's a big thrill for them. We're thinking we'll see when things reopen. We're hearing from a lot of the marketing teams at venues that are presenting this or gifting this to their patrons, what a great marketing tool this is. And so we're thinking that maybe when venues reopen, we'll slightly pivot, and instead of reuniting the original Broadway cast, we'll reunite the tour cast so that you can meet them before you go see the show.
Or after.
After.
Yeah, it's really good. Let's talk for a second about the money side of it. I have a few sort of laws of online events, and one of them it was very early on that I realized was very important, which sounds really simple, but I think you guys will agree and recall that a lot of people weren't following this and still aren't, which is one of the keys to success in online events is make a good show and charge people money for it.
Yes, I think that's a good.
I mean, it sounds dumb, right? But I think there's a hump that people need to get over. And in the early days, it was about doing a lousy show and not charging people for it. And
we did that
a month or two of that. People it was really funny because people were saying like, well, I can't make any money from online events. Well, what have you done? Well, I did a free event that, well, okay, so it was a good event. Like, well, it was a free event, so I couldn't really, I couldn't really put any money into it. It's like, well, do you normally not put money into a show? No, of course not, because if I didn't put money into a show, it wouldn't be any good. And if it wasn't any good, could you charge for it? No, I couldn't charge for it. Okay, so if you put money into an online show, well, online shows don't make any money. I'm like, wait a second, this logic breaks down, right? Like,
well, I will say this.
Yeah,
go ahead. I will say this.
It's not just about the money; it's about the quality and the thought process that goes into making the show good.
We obviously, being able to have people on, and we pay them, and we do have money into the production, especially the Broadway cast reunion. We want the show to look good. We have a theme song, we have graphics, we have someone who engineers the show for us. But what we also realize is that marketing, Lee and me have this past year, even though we have day jobs in theory, don't tell my bosses that. Even though we have day jobs,
we're going to pretend we didn't hear that.
It's a full-time job. We market the shows, we run social media for the shows, we book the shows, we edit the videos for the shows, like putting in but it's a passion for Lee and myself. Art in general is a passion. So it's been fun, but I do think that there's a way to make a profit and put out a good product at home. Even when theaters open again, there's a percentage of the world that's not going to be running to a performing arts center. And I think that us being able to put together a good entertaining product is what allows us to hopefully continue to make a profit. People buy tickets again, but it's about reaching people. But that's what Stellar does, especially partnering with Gold Star and everyone else. You guys have a name and reputation. When I go on your home screen and I see Jennifer Holliday's birthday show, or I see the Lies, the birthday show, or the Jagged Little Pill show, you guys have an upcoming event. You have a good group of events that I think me and Lee are proud to be a part of that kind of area and that world together.
And you, I mean, the casts that have been on, I mean, it's just been amazing. And I know that the Stellar watchers have been thrilled with the opportunity. So that, so that whole thing, I really love the story, because I just wish I could get this message out there more and more to live event producers, which is success in online events. It relies on a few things, but one of the key things is make a good show, charge people for it. If you can do that, and by the way, that's what we do as live entertainment professionals all the time, right? Like, that's not new at all, and it seems totally uncontroversial to say. So, but it is a key to it, and I love to hear examples that you're talking about. Theme song, the right sort of video presentation, all of that stuff, paying people. Absolutely, there's a lot to be done in that area.
Well, I want to say that for our weekly quarantine show, we do all that. Like I said, I engineer, Robert edits the videos, and we do everything. But we knew for this, because we're selling it to prominent venues and because of the guests that we were going to host on the show, we wanted to up the game. And so we hired a production designer, an engineer. And so every week, our screen is branded to that show. So Frozen looks like Frozen, and The Lion King looks like The Lion King, and Dear Evan Hansen next week looks like Dear Evan Hansen. And so Jonathan Hawkins, who owns a production company called The Muse Presents, he creates all of that. He creates all of our social media content and tells us what we're allowed to post and when, because Robert and I are just like, oh, let's do a story. And he's like, no,
posting and
everything is branded. Everything, there's an order. And so we could not do this without him. And our dear friend Johnny Rogers, I called him and I'm like, we're doing this new show and we need a theme song. And he said, well, text me just a bullet point list of adjectives about, your show. And we did. And he literally wrote us a theme song.
Nice.
And then Jonathan, animated it with clips from our existing show. and
It's great.
It's very exciting,
Right.
you know. So I feel like
Yeah.
our product really is very slick and it looks good. And we also, yes, we wanted to sell tickets, but we wanted to make it very accessible because, you know, people have been home for a long time. You know, I have not, you know, made a deposit in the bank for a year. So I know what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
And so we put out our tickets at $15.
Mm-hmm.
So they are super accessible. And I mean, I think it's working because we've sold thousands of tickets.
And it's worth saying. I mean,
because it is so accessible.
But at the same time, you're paying people and you're doing work. I mean, it's just a virtuous circle of activity, right? Like the person paying. My theory about tickets and whether it's online or in person is that, you know, if you have the right proposition for the right customer, they're actually happy to pay the money for the ticket. Obviously, people don't like to waste money, but you know, if you spend $15 to have this experience, and you know that the people, you know, running the soundboard or the people appearing on the screen are actually, especially now, you know, getting paid, you know, fans of this content are more than happy to pay that amount of money. I mean, it's such a win-win, right? Like in a way, the free stuff is a little bit like an admission that, you know, there's no value here in a way, right? There's a place for it. Right. Don't get me wrong. This, for example, is free because it's education content for people who want to do online events and learn more about Stellar. But I just think it's such a great thing to give people the opportunity to support things that they love. I
agree, and I want to correct myself. The only deposits that have been coming into my bank are from Stellar. Every day I get an email that says your funds are on the way. Every day, like clockwork.
And of course, you don't have to go to the bank for that.
I don't have to go to the bank.
So 21st century. That's why.
But you make such a good point, though. Lee as an artist and myself as an artist, we've been asked a bazillion times to do things for nothing. You know, sing places and perform places for nothing. And these artists on Broadway, they get asked a million times to do something for nothing as well. I think the day that Lee sat down and wrote checks after the first Frozen reunion, the fact that we created something that sent a check to them that paid them for their time was something of real pride for me and him. It was something we were really proud to be able to do.
And rightly so. I really feel that, you know, that has to be, on some level, it's a principle that somebody has to stand up for. And I think the online event space is one where it's been very important. And I'm happy that you guys have been there and others, and we've been there to play the part of saying, no, this is serious. It's worth money. It's worth the time of a big time professional, a person at the peak of their, you know, career and their skill. It's worth the money, right? It's worth paying for. Mm-hmm. It's worth doing. It applies across the board, but you know, gosh, it's been a little bit of, we had to kind of unwind a little bit of some bad thinking at the beginning, I think, to get there, but we're getting there.
Yeah, well, and we knew nothing about this. I mean, we knew nothing about this at all. And, you know, your staff and crew has been incredible. I know you're updating and enhancing your system every day. And so, you know, we get stuck because something that was on our dashboard the day before is no longer there. But I'm saying, like, literally within minutes, you know, we get the support that we need. And everybody has been so incredibly helpful. And Gold Star has been unbelievable how they featured us in their newsletters, and it's just great. I mean, it's been really a wonderful experience. So
now on the Gold Star side, just if anyone's listening, on the Gold Star side, we really do, first of all, there's no extra charge for any sales that come through Gold Star, at least for now. But also on the Gold Star side, we've really been going all out with Stellar shows to give them as much juice as we can. And, you know, I always tell people, you can't rely on Gold Star as your marketing plan, because there's only so much that you'll get from that. You have to have a complete marketing plan, but it is a piece of the puzzle. And we really do try to go the extra mile for everything that's on Stellar that wants to be on Gold Star. So I'm glad to hear that's a value to you.
Yeah,
it's great to mention something. Oh, go ahead, Lee.
No, I was going to say the very first newsletter that we were featured in And the subject line of the newsletter that Gold Star sent out was Broadway lovers, this one's for you. Okay.
Done.
And somebody at the travel site Travel Zoo saw it and contacted us and said, we'd like to partner with you on this. And I responded and I said, I'm sure you're looking for paid advertising and we're not interested. And she emailed me back. She said, no, we actually want to partner with you. And I was like, but how? Right. Well, they offer events, not only travel, but entertainment to their members. And so she, sent me the link to Josh Groban's Valentine's concert that they were supporting and promoting. Well, they've come on board. They're promoting every one of our events.
That's great.
And they sell hundreds of tickets.
That's fantastic.
Each episode. It's fantastic. And that would have not happened if they hadn't seen the Gold Star feature.
Yeah, that is great. Distribution so important,
Yeah, and they're a trackable link. We see what they sell through your Stellar programming. So they're one of the link. They use your link to sell their tickets for us.
That's great. And it's a real win-win, like looping them into the win as well, right? They can win with it in their audience. So that is really fantastic. We're getting sort of toward the end here, but there was one thing that I wanted to build on from the whole idea of trackable links. One of the first things that happened with the trackable links, and really the motivator for our building it as early as we did, which I think was all the way back in September, was the venues, right? The venues that you would normally tour and that kind of thing. But there's been an innovation on that you all also may be using, but I wanted to make people aware of it because I think it's a real opportunity, which is, and again, it goes into the win-win-win-win-win-win idea that we have in play here. And that is performers in the shows are now, a lot of people are offering the performers in their shows a trackable link that they also can use because many of them have social media following or whatever kind of fans that they can actually reach. And this is a thing that I'm seeing more and more just in the last maybe month or so. But I think it has a lot of potential because if somebody is in a show, obviously, they're getting paid to be in the show and maybe they have even points on the show or whatever it is. But in addition to that, if they can be an ally to the marketing of the show, all the better, right? And there's no reason not to make the success that they bring in directly attributable in part to them. So this is something I want to encourage people to think about. I really do. That your performers can also be an avenue to an audience that they command in a very powerful way. I don't know if you guys have tried that yet, but it's
we haven't. But my mind is percolating.
Yes, the baby has.
Our guests, have tens of thousands of followers, and so they very often will repost what we post and tag them in. But we could offer every guest a trackable link. And pay them a percentage.
And they can get the percentage.
You can probably get them to do it for free on some level, but let's talk about what we were saying earlier, right? Like there's a difference between saying, hey, do it for free. And that's I'm not saying don't do that, but what I'm saying is it's worth thinking about. Is there an opportunity to say, you're going to be on the show? A lot of people pay to be on the show, and that's why we're paying you. But there's also this other kind of opportunity. And I think that what we see when that happens is that these performers, I don't know, they kind of put their shoulder into the wheel a little bit more in terms of getting the word out there. You know what I mean? And rightly so, because they have an incentive to do so.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
So I encourage everybody to think that way. You guys give it a shot and let us know how that goes, and we'll share it with people. But that's definitely an emerging idea.
Yeah, I love it. Now we have to do a meeting after this.
We'll have to talk about it.
Yeah. And the system, as you said, is you can do it as many as you can create as many trackable links as you want. So
great.
So we're coming to the end. I know there's a couple of questions about this interview content and whether it's going to be available. It's definitely going to be made available recorded. So if you miss it or if you want to watch it again, we'll have it. That's no problem. It'll be in your Stellar wallet. And then, I don't know, we may post it a couple of other places. I'm not sure. But in any case, if you're watching this right now, you can watch it later on Stellar. And we'll do our best just to get if anybody missed it or whatever, we'll do our best to get the content out to you. So if there's any other questions for Lee or Robert, do ask them now, and we can still ask them while we have them. But until that happens, what else, guys? What's the future look like from your point of view?
Oh boy. Well, I will tell you this much: whatever future virtual concerts and shows that me and Lee do, I'm not trying to just kiss up to you because you're here. I was just selling Stellar to a singer friend of mine who wants to do a virtual concert the other day. I think, when Lee has artists that put music out, when Lee puts out music, when I put out music, you said my album's coming out, like the idea of doing a virtual release party, like having this experience, me and Lee's experience for the future, only builds the virtual audience for us, and is a whole other avenue that I don't think we would have ever ventured into. And we have so many reunions coming up. That you can. We're not going anywhere.
I like I said, it wasn't like you could get that content before, even if you wanted to, right? It was not. This wasn't a Band-Aid during the pandemic. This is a new form of content that I think people are going to continue to want.
Yeah.
Lee, how about you? When you look forward, what are you seeing out over the next? Hopefully, one of the things we're all seeing over the next few months is a return to the venue. But what else?
But we couldn't do what we're doing really in a venue.
Correct.
And so this was born out of this situation, but it really only exists in this virtual world. And so for us, this, whatever future life this has, we've committed to 6 months. So we're going to be doing these through the end of July, twice a month. But if we continue, it will be virtual, because you can't get that up close and personal experience in a venue. And that's the whole reason for it. Yeah. I don't know. I'm pushing all of my concert dates into 2022. And for most of my artists, the same. That's just what I'm hearing. I mean, I feel like, Broadway literally cannot reopen if they can't be at 100% capacity. Tours, maybe slightly less, maybe 75% capacity. But, I talk to, marketing and PR people every day that represent Broadway tours. And I was saying to someone this morning, I saw something on the news. I'm not sure. I think it was Idaho, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me. There was a reporter like in a diner and asking, and not one mask in sight. And he was interviewing people, just asking, will you get the vaccine? And every single person said no. So I was sharing that with the publicist today. And she was like, this is the problem with our tours. Like Actors Equity, the union, like, we have to pull the tour from cities and states that are not following the mandates, because we can't go there.
Right.
We'll see what happens.
We certainly will. I'm pretty optimistic about what things look like in 6 months. I think there's going to be a million bumps along the road and some reversals and some snags, but I think the progress is pretty clear at this point. I think hopefully that'll just continue. But anyway, I think you guys are right. I think that whatever happens, the genie's out of the bottle in terms of your ability to innovate with the online space. And a Robert Bannon online concert is obviously something that we all need. Lee, you need to produce that. Whenever that happens, obviously.
Doing these weekly online events, it forces me to keep my office tidy. So I'm appreciative for that.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to thank you guys for being part of this today. I really, really loved getting a chance to talk to you. And I want to recommend to everybody that you check out a Broadway Cast Reunion show. There's several coming up. They're all on Stellar. I think we might have maybe put the links in the chat. If not, we can do that. Dear Evan Hansen's on the 24th. I think that's, if I'm not mistaken, Jersey Boys on April 7th. And then what's the title? The title?
It's
everyone's
called
talking about Jamie, right? Which has not been to Broadway yet. It was only on the West End, right?
Yeah. Right. We have the entire West End cast, the composer and writer and director. We're doing a special matinee on the 17th of April. The film of the musical is being released, I think, this month. And then the plan is that it'll do a national U.S. tour that will culminate with a Broadway opening.
So it's going to kind of go opposite from normal. It'll
Correct.
tour and then come to New York, which,
Correct.
by the way, is something I think looking down the road, we might see more of that. We might see tours ending in Broadway rather than the other way around, which is cool. So there's those coming up, and then there'll be more following that because Broadway cast reunions are here to stay. I think there's no question. There's a thirst for it, and you're looking at the guys that innovated that format. So great pleasure to have you. Thank you guys for being part of it. Really,
Thank
you
really
so
great to have you.
much,
Thank you for being
Tim.
on Stellar. I want to mention to everybody that the next Spotlight on Success, Stellar Spotlight on Success, will be on April 1st, and we will have Whitney Britt from Momentum and Deborah Warren from Center Theater Group in Los Angeles on April 1st, and more great success stories and tips. And we will be announcing the date for the next Gold Star Expert Chat, Return Readiness, new data. We got some really exciting new data that we're going to share with you. And until then, thanks for joining, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.